couple more people join. We'll wait just a little bit longer here. Okay, well, it's 6:05. We appreciate everyone going ahead and joining. My name is Paul Kuhn. I'm a landscape architect with the town of Cary, and want to give a quick overview and then some introductions to what we will be doing this evening. So we've owned these lakes since 2014 and have been monitoring them and maintaining them. And we're committed to strengthening the reliability and safety of our stormwater infrastructure. So in 2022, funding was received to start the design for rebuilding the dams. Plans have been completed and all the permits received, and we are planning to start construction after June 1st of 2025. So tonight, our agenda is going to be talking about the history, why this project, the project scope, schedule, and questions. And so if you do have questions, we're going to ask that you go ahead and you can type it in the chat. If while we're speaking, if something comes up, please go ahead and type it in at that time. If it makes sense, we may jump in and go ahead and try to answer it. Otherwise, we'll definitely work to answer it at the end. Then we're going to take all these questions and create a FAQ, a frequently asked questions, and go ahead and post that on our project webpage. And that's where you really should go first if you want to know information about the project, is the project webpage. And our staff's goal will be to update that at least once a quarter, hopefully more as construction's happening, but at least once a quarter we'll kind of give a status of where things are on the projects. And we'll kind of share at the end that all questions during the project will come through our 311 system. So I want to first have our staff team that is here introduce themselves. And a couple of them will be presenting, but all of us are here to answer questions that we may have, that you all may have. And so I'm going to start with Billy Lee and let him introduce himself.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Billy Lee. I'm the Stormwater Operation Manager for the town. I will also be project managing this project. And the second option for finding information will be to call 311, and 311 will get you through to whoever would be appropriate to answer your question.
And then Jan, do you want to go next? Oh, you're muted.
You're muted, Jan.
I saw that. My name is Jan Patterson. I am a senior project manager here with the Stormwater Division at Town of Cary. I will be helping Billy with the management of the project and helping to oversee the contractor and the construction.
And Eric, you want to go next?
I'm Eric Coles. I'm an environmental specialist in the Stormwater Division with the Town of Cary. I've been involved with the permitting on the project and just supporting the team.
All right, thanks, Eric. And then Ken, you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and your role?
My name's Ken Trevsker. I'm with HDR Engineering here in Raleigh. I am the engineer of record and responsible for making sure the facilities are constructed per the plans and specifications.
All right, thanks, Ken. Andrew, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm Andrew Marston. I'm with Parks and Recreation as a recreation manager for the Parks and Outdoor Programs. I'm just here because it's an outdoor space.
Great. And then we'll turn it over to Sandy Bailey to introduce herself and then kind of start into the presentation.
Thanks, Paul. Yes, I'm Sandy Bailey. I am in transportation planning with Cary, and I have done and still do a lot of work with Cary's Greenways. And so, Billy, if you want to bring up the presentation, we'll go ahead and jump in. As Paul said, we just wanted to share with you kind of the what, the why, and the when of this project that involves the dams on the two lakes at Twin Lakes. Next slide, Billy. And so just a little outline of what we'll cover with the presentation. We have a few historical aerial photos, and we'll talk to you a little bit about the history of the lakes and what we know of that, why we're doing this project and the project scope, what exactly will the project entail, and our anticipated schedule for that. And then we'll be glad to answer questions. Next slide. So this is an aerial photo from 1938, and you can kind of see Davis Drive was there and Morrisville Carpenter Road, and not a whole lot else. It was primarily farmland. The orange circle area is where the ponds are, and they were not there in 1938. Next slide. In 1959, you can see that the ponds are there, and the North Carolina dam safety records indicate that the ponds were created about sometime in 1958. So they were brand new at this point, but primarily still a lot of farmland in the area. Next slide. And this is 1971, and still a lot of just primarily farming happening in the area. And with the lakes, you can see that where the dams are now, at the time that the lakes were created, these were farm ponds, and those dam areas, there were roads that crossed them. And you can see on the right side of the orange circle kind of where the farmhouse was located that those roads headed out to. Next slide. And today, things sure have changed. So there's a lot of single family and multifamily residential, office, and retail. And we've got a Wegmans now. And the ponds, when the Twin Lakes subdivision was developed, were dedicated to the town of Cary. The lakes, excuse me, were dedicated to the town of Cary, as was that about a 10-acre parcel, that wooded parcel there that's in the curve of Lake Grove Boulevard, as a future park site. And so the development has really taken off, and I'm going to turn it over to Billy now and let him tell you kind of what the dams are like today and why we need to do this project. Billy? Billy, you're muted. If
Can you hear me now? Thank you. For some
Yep.
reason, I got too many screens going at one time and can't get to the mute button. Why are we doing this project? I think probably the first thing for me to do would be to get you oriented and show you the lay of the land, and then that will kind of lead in to why we need to do this project. Of course, there are two lakes here. There's the lower lake, which is south, and then the northern lake, which is a little north. There's a stream feeding the lake. It makes its way up to about McCrimmon Parkway, and from McCrimmon Parkway, the stream comes down and feeds the upper lake. The lower dam is located, the lower pond dam or lake dam is located where the arrow is here. The upper dam is this location. As I said, water flows from the north to the south. Dams are there to dam the stream up and impound the water. The outlet from the upper lake to the lower lake is the blue line that is depicted here. And then from there, it goes into the lower lake. and from the lower lake, it goes out and drains down. Eventually, about a mile and a half from the dam, it hits Crabtree Creek, and then about 3 miles down, it hits Crabtree Lake. The lower lake is about 5 acres, and the upper lake is about 8.5 acres. So what do we plan on doing? Well, back up a little bit. The outlets, which are the blue, sorry about that, which are the blue lines, are just earthen spillways, just streams, if you will, and they are very eroded and incised and in bad shape, and do not pass a very large storm at all. So they have to be replaced. So this drawing depicts the two red areas are the dams that we plan on raising them up and having gentle slopes on them. Our contractor is Conti Civil. We took bids back in February, and they were the apparent high bidder. We have contracted with them. They're a very seasoned contractor, and they're going to rebuild the dams and then also rebuild the outfalls.
Just to clarify, they were the apparent low bidder.
Right. Sorry about that. So the scope of work is going to include first draining the lake, then excavating for the new outfalls. Again, the old outfalls were in the abutment of the west abutment of the upper dam and the east abutment of the lower dam, and we're building concrete outfalls as opposed to earthen outfalls that they're depicted as the white lines that go through the dam. And so we'll be excavating for those, and then we will build the outfalls, which again are concrete pipe, and then we'll rebuild the dams, and then we'll regrade the lakes. Inside the lakes, lakes naturally accumulate sediment, and so we're anticipating there being a fair amount of sediment in the bottom of the lake. So we'll be regrading the bottom of the lakes to some extent, and then once it's regraded, then we'll refill the lakes naturally over time. And then on the lower lake outfall, it's eroded pretty badly. So again, we'll be doing a stream restoration as well as dealing with the erosion for that outfall. Then next, we will use the haul roads that will be coming off of Lake Grove and Downing to build greenway trails. So the yellow areas around the north side of the lower lake and the two dams and the greenway from Downing Glen, Lake Grove going in, and it'll circle the lower lake, and that's it. That's depicted in yellow. So we'll be converting those haul roads to asphalt greenways, and then converting the staging area to a grass lawn that can be used for, just for hanging out, if you will. Also, too many buttons here. The sidewalk at Downing and Lake Grove will have a detour um, about 2 years ago, 2023, we put in three-way stop at this location anticipating this project. So that will be at that location. Construction activity will be from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And again, that starts June 1st. We possibly work on weekends, and that time will be limited for between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. And we won't allow any construction on holidays
Or Sundays,
or Sundays.
just only Saturday work, if approved by the town.
That's correct. And we anticipate the project taking about 21 months for construction. So we're anticipating it being completed in the spring of 2027. So that's pretty much it for our side of it, and we're ready to field any questions you may have.
So Billy, we've got a question about existing stormwater treatment from the commercial on the west and the residential on the east. Can you talk about what is existing stormwater devices that are out there?
And looking at the picture that is in front of us, just northwest of the open lawn is one pond, and that's an existing farm pond, if you will. And right now it's drained and it will probably remain that way. Then the next water body just above that, just below where it says Tranquil, is a stormwater control measure that is owned by the subdivision, and that will not be impacted. As we build the Greenway Trail, we will put in accommodations for the flow out of both of those areas underneath the Greenway.
And then on the east side of the lakes, where Wegsman's is and apartments, I'm seeing at least 4 stormwater devices in the aerial photo. So there are existing stormwater devices from the.
Yes, there are, and those are not impacted by what we are doing. We will not be in that area. We will only be working on the 2 water bodies, the upper and lower lake of Twin Lakes. All the stormwater control measures will not be impacted by this.
Okay. And then will the sediment be removed from the lake, Billy?
We have an allowance for removing sediment from the lake, and we'll remove as much as we can. Ken may want to expound on that a little bit.
Our plan was to grade most of the lower lake to maintain at least a 6-foot depth of water. It's about 11 feet deep at the dam itself. Given we don't have to do that, so we may decide that's something that would happen later in the project, and we may decide to reduce the amount of material we remove, but we will be removing that material.
Okay. Thanks, Ken and Billy. And we got a
I would also add that since you have 2 lakes in series here, probably the majority of the accumulated sediment is going to be in the upper portion of the upper lake.
That is true.
Okay, very good. I'm going to move to the next question, and Billy, maybe start with you about how will all the wildlife be humanely handled for this project?
We have been up with Fish and Wildlife and with DWR and other agencies to make sure that we're following all the rules and regulations as it relates to the wildlife. We're still in process there in terms of how the contractor is going to ultimately address that. Eric, you may want to add some to that.
We did speak with the District 3 fisheries biologist for North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. There are really not a lot of options for this particular situation. This is a public lake. We cannot transplant the fish to another public lake because you have to have a permit to do that. And Wildlife Resources said they would not give us a permit because we don't know anything about the fish populations in this lake, nor do we know anything about where we would transfer them if we were to transfer them to another public lake. They suggested we could possibly try contacting lake management companies and see if they would want the fish. We contacted 4 of them. We got 3 responses. 2 said they did not want them. 1 said they may, depending on the timing, be able to take them or some of them. There's a lot of logistics involved in catching and moving the fish in terms of when they would be accessible in the lakes and when the lake company would have a place to put them. The contractor is working with the lake company to see how those logistics work out. But there's a lot of moving pieces in this project. Our prime purpose here is public safety, protection of lives, protection of property, and our infrastructure. But we are trying to work all those other items into the project as well. It just depends on the timing.
Okay. And I think Billy may have mentioned the acronym DWR. Can you say what that stands for?
Division of Water Resources.
Okay. Thank you. And then, so thank you for those responses on the wildlife. Sandy, I see a question here about on this map, it calls out the future greenway with the red and white line. Can you talk about that greenway and what that means?
Sure. So there is a proposed future greenway on Cary's Greenways master plan that would continue all the way around the northern lake. When the subdivision was developed, we did get easement for most of that conveyed. Of course, the design for that trail was not completed. So, we would have to see, does it fit within that? I think it was a 30-foot easement maybe. And then on the northern end, there is a parcel still where we don't have easement that would be required from the HOA, a dedication for that. But we don't have plans to construct that with this project. We don't have the budget to do it. And we do not have, unfortunately, a timeline for you right now as to when that might be constructed. It is on the plan. So that is the ultimate goal, but we don't have any plans to do that at this time.
Okay. And then I'll go maybe back to Billy and Ken about a question of how many trees will be cut around the upper lake and the lower lake? Can you kind of describe what will be happening with any tree clearing?
Okay, looking at the illustration you have now, there's the yellow line coming in from Downing Glen and Lake Grove, the Project Greenway. So there'll be trees cut along that in order to accommodate the haul in and the building of the Greenway Trail. There are no trees on the upper or lower dam, so there won't be any removed there. The open lawn will, there'll be trees cut down in that location. There'll be some regrading there, and it again it'll be planted back in grass, so it'll kind of be an area you can walk your dog, if you will, off the Greenway Trail. Then the northern part of the Greenway Trail that's in yellow, there'll be a pathway cut there. There are trees along the north side of the lower lake. Again, once you get to the upper lake, there are no trees on the upper part of on the upper dam.
And so there won't be any trees removed past the upper dam along those neighborhood houses. Is that correct?
Yeah, once that yellow line hits the red and white line, there won't be any clearing beyond that.
Okay. And Sandy, we got a question about why are we not completing the greenway closer to the neighborhood with connections to our streets? The neighborhood's been waiting almost 18 years for that.
Yeah, it comes down to budget and timing, basically. We are able to do the greenways on the yellow area because those areas are already going to be cleared as part of the dam project. And so a couple of things, like I said, the budget, we didn't have the budget to do the design, the clearing, the permitting that would be required to complete the loop around the northern lake. Plus, there's still an outstanding easement that would need to be dedicated from the HOA. And we have talked about that in the past. There may be some question as to the process for dedicating that easement that we'll have to deal with in the future when we do construct that. But also the dam project, there's it's a more immediate need that we get that done, and so we did not want to hold that up, trying to deal with an easement issue or permitting issue to cross the stream on the northern end, even if we had the funding to do it. So we're happy to be able to get the greenway done as they pull out from completing the dam projects, and then just pave those greenways because that grading work will mostly already be done with the dam work. So.
Yeah, so the yellow will kind of be the haul roads that the contractor would be using to get in and access and get their construction equipment in and out. So we were able to take advantage of that and make them the paved greenways, and that's why that portion was being done with the overall stormwater project. So we have a question about what will be the park, what will there be any park amenities provided at the closeout? And Sandy or Andrew, do you want to kind of just talk about the open lawn and the greenway as the amenities?
Yeah, so that open lawn is the staging area for this project, where they'll be keeping equipment and materials while the work on the dams is being done. And so when that's completed, the plan is to reseed that area. And so it will be, just an open lawn area that will be mowed and can be used for picnics or recreational use, however the community wants to use it. There's no plan to install equipment at this time. Yeah.
It's roughly 1 acre in size too.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. I believe this is back to the greenway easement that you were talking about, Sandy. And is there a plan to obtain that easement with this project?
We don't have a plan to get that easement with this project, but we are certainly happy to pick up talks with the HOA if there's interest in doing that, and try to work our way through that process. Again, we don't have funding to build that trail right now, but that would be one more step done if we were able to do that.
One thing to clarify is that the impetus for this project is that the dams do not meet current NC dam safety standards. So this is primarily a dam replacement project that we were able to, double up and do the greenway portion of the project.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. And I see a question from Lisa about the tree clearing for the open space. And any tree clearing that's occurring with the project is required to do the dam project. So the open lawn is what we get. We need that open lawn during construction for the construction staging so that they can bring in the equipment and move materials. And Billy or Ken, do you want to talk about the construction staging that's needed for that area?
Well, the one thing I'd like to point out is that that we did a tree survey and there were no champion trees or any trees, that required preservation, if you will. So I'll let Ken speak to the staging area sizing.
Yeah, thanks, Billy. The project requires us we're excavating the current dam and that material is good. And we want to be able to store that material and really use it to bring back, put back in the lake. So it's a great spot for us to temporarily spoil the material. We're going to be moving a lot of material. And then, like others have said, the contractor has a lot of equipment. He's got the staff to park. So along that greenway next to the open lawn, we've got a little bit wider area for them to put material. We've got rebar, we've got form work. So it's quite a bit of stuff that'll be out there. And if we were to try to keep the contractor and force him to stay in a smaller footprint, it just requires them it costs more money because this allows them to store material nearby.
And so we're not clearing any extra trees. There's a comment about clearing extra in the future park. We did take that definitely into consideration about the future park, and most parks have a lawn area, and we felt like this would be a logical location for a lawn area. So that was all taken into consideration about where's the best location for that to occur. Let's see. Question about the two small ponds close by to the lower lake. Any impact on those? I think, Bill, you talked about those a little bit, but can you re-talk about those?
Yes, those two will not be impacted. We have made provisions for drainage under the proposed Greenway Trail at both locations, and have properly sized those outlets. So but the ponds themselves will not be impacted.
And
Hey, Billy, do you mind if I add, we on the
Yes.
one lake, we're kind of connecting it to the lower lake, the one on the southern side, and kind of making that almost part of the lower lake. So it should have a more definitive, normal pool. It'll be the same elevation. So we're kind of tying it together.
Thanks, Ken.
yeah, and Ken, can you maybe elaborate how the sediment will be removed from the upper lake without impacting the trees?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Paul? Was that?
Yeah, how will the sediment be removed without impacting the trees around the upper lake?
Well, okay, so the upper lake, the footprint's smaller and there's not a lot of trees out there now. We're gonna build a berm and we'll have what we refer to as a temporary channel through the lower lake to try to, and we're gonna be conveying The goal is to convey what we consider clean water through the lower lake, and it's sized to handle a certain rain event. So anytime we're working within the lakes, we run the risk of having a large rain event that floods out the work area. But we've taken measures to reduce that risk. So given the shorter duration, we just hope we don't have that large event while we're out there constructing.
And then another pond question, can the lower pond that's now dry be established and managed as a wetland?
And so the lower pond will be back, we're gonna put that back to the normal pool elevation. So it won't have, we are putting a vegetative bench around the lower lake because we're out there excavating it. So there will be some vegetation, and it does help water quality, and it reduces geese sometimes, so the vegetation, there is going to be a vegetative bench around that lower lake.
And I failed to point out in my presentation, there is another berm crossing the lower lake so it's segregated into two pieces. We call that a 4-bay upstream, and we're removing that berm that crosses through the lower lake.
All right, thank you. Andrew, have a question about the open lawn area. And it was, would we consider a prairie meadow instead of a lawn grass since there are no plans for tables, toilets, play equipment, etc.? That would be a feather in Cary's cap, so to speak. Can you talk about like open lawns versus natural prairies and different uses?
Sure. Like was mentioned, we're just taking advantage of this project to try and add a recreation amenity ahead of time. It's kind of like a mini park for now, like you see downtown, where it's a grass space that maybe kids can come play soccer or, walk your dog, like they mentioned. And it's a little easier to maintain on the items, which is why there's no other amenities. But as mentioned, there's a future park plan there that may incorporate other pieces later to come.
Yeah, so it gives the opportunity for that informal play. Some kids from the neighborhood could pick up soccer game, fly kite, those type of things out here, and give the community that opportunity with this project.
Yeah. It proved to be very popular amenities in neighborhood parks. So
yes, right. I think, let me look back through the list here, but I think we've caught.
Well, I saw one question about that future greenway and whether if we don't get that easement now, does that mean the trail won't be built? And I just wanted to address that no, that is not the case. That trail will stay on our master plan map, and when there is funding and it moves forward, the typical process would be for us to pursue acquiring that easement at that time. So just because we don't have the easement now, or we're not getting it with this project, doesn't mean that trail won't ultimately be built.
And I think we just got a kind of a related follow-up question, Sandy, that the dams were the holdup to the future greenway. And it's true, we haven't had budget to build the greenway. And up to this point, still don't, but we're taking advantage of the stormwater to get a few more connections in. Anything else to add to that last question that we just got?
Oh, let's see. I was just looking at the comment. It's I don't know that the dam work was always needed for sure, and we couldn't do the greenway without doing the dams. But it's the normal, in the normal course of a greenway construction project, you know, there typically are easements that need to be acquired. We fortunately, like I said, got easements dedicated at the time that the subdivision was developed, with the exception of that one parcel, and it's a small piece. And so I don't anticipate that that would ultimately hold up the project. The question came up is oftentimes is the process for conveying that easement. We had talked about it at one point in the past, and that's often a question with HOAs. Is depending on how your covenants and declarations are written, and as to what that process is, and sometimes it requires a vote of so many, you know, a certain percentage of the residents, and sometimes that's hard to get. But that's part of the typical process of doing a greenway project, is acquiring the easements. And so again, you know, you are always free to lobby, you know, for that project or any project. But when council's preparing the budgets and greenway projects are moving forward, it's, you know, projects are competing against other needs all across town. And so, as I said, we do still plan to construct that greenway. We don't have a timeline for that right now.
All right, yeah. Thank you, Sandy, and thank you to everyone, Billy, Ken, Andrew, Jan, Eric, for answering those questions. We're about 6:45, and I think these have been some good questions that we can use to prepare our frequently asked questions and post on the project webpage, which is listed right here on the screen. And so we'll definitely get that updated before construction starts in June. And then we also have listed on here information about 311. And that will be the best way if you have any follow-up questions or during construction, if you see something and you want to reach out, that will be the way. And then it will be sent to the appropriate staff person to look at and respond along that. So before we close, I just want to check with staff and see, is there any final comments from the group?
It's been a long time coming, and we're happy to get it done. And we appreciate your patience as we move forward with the project.
All righty, yes. So thank you for taking some time out of your evening to learn more about this.